Welcome back. I haven't done an episode in a while, so I thought I'd do one here. I took a nice little break and kind of rejuvenated me to play here. After taking a break, it was nice to look at a bunch of the players and kind of a little bit of fresh eyes, I guess you would call it. And I just noticed, I think sometimes when you grind a lot, you just kind of get some ideas in your head about how stuff's going to go, and then you kind of get refreshed a little bit taking a break. So looking back now, there's some guys that have come along quite a bit more than I had realized, and I think I was kind of underestimating them, especially guys on my team. Uh, like I had really high hopes for Lundy when I drafted him, and kind of got a little bit bored. But then I look at him now, and it's like, well, he's 6'2", he's only 17. He's got crazy shot accuracy, really good offensive read and passing. Two most important things for a defenseman offensively, and he's got pretty good defense with 11 and 10 positioning, and really good skater for a defenseman, and has really good overall game because he's like a balanced offense defensive skating guy, and he's got size. So you look at someone like that, you're like, man, he's gonna be a monster when he's 19. He's gonna be 6'2", 225. He's gonna have like 15 shot. He's gonna have like 12, 13 defense. He's gonna be a really good skater. It's just a guy like that. You're just like, whoa, he's actually like kind of progressing a lot more than I thought. It's like it's only a year of progression, right? And then you see Baldoni, and he's come a long way. He was 5'9". He was a fourth or fifth round pick. He's developed to have a really good puck handling, and he's got green in both of the categories are important on defense, read and positioning. So he's another guy with high stamina. So he could be a top four guy. That's a really good puck handler. Doesn't have a crazy shot, but if we have him with a really good puck handling and really good defense, that's still pretty really good defenseman. The fact that he's 6'1" already, which is wicked, growing a lot from the draft days. The guy that hasn't grown a lot, but he's developed pretty nicely, is Ethel. He was 5'8", 164 when I drafted him. He's just been always kind of the same player, a little bit better offensively than defense, but his hitting and checking are pretty good for a small guy, which is nice. He's got some really nice stats on the speed side. His speed's a little bit low, but like his agility is really good. His balance is good, and he's got pretty decent stamina. So he's another guy where he's not a great skater because he's small, but he's got a nice offensive read and is a good hitter and brings a lot of things to the table. So I really like him too. The other guy kind of really was like, I guess I always knew how good he was, but just really looking at him, how elite he is Maynard, the first round pick rookie. I think he was rated as the third best player in the draft, my scout said. If you look at his defense and hitting and speed and strength, it's just so high end. He's got 13 speed, 12 strength as a rookie, which is crazy. Those could be like 16 and 15 in a couple years, which is that's actually probably the best combo I've ever had. I haven't had a guy that had double digit in both like that. I probably had a guy that were like 10 and 9, but I don't think I've ever had a forward that's like 13 and 12 in those two categories. That's pretty insane. He's going to be a physical force when he's older. He could be like 6'3", 220, like 15 strength. So we'll see how he develops. He's a huge, huge defensive piece. For 4 years, he could be like on the penalty kill. So I'm really excited about him. So anyways, that's my team. And then just the normal recap is I'm at 16 and 9. I've been losing a little bit more than I thought. This team's really good. I thought I'd be a tad better. Like if you look at this top six I have playing 18, 19 minutes a game, I actually play the second line a little bit more because they're really like the first line. But it's just had a couple injuries in that first line. We've had Dodson, our star player, has been out on that line. So that second line's just been producing like crazy. And so I gave him a few more minutes than the first line because there's a couple guys in that second line not on the power play, so I figured kind of make up. So it's still first line guys are still playing a lot more minutes because they're on the power play. Peterson, I think Holowick moves up to the point on the power play, and then usually it's Dodds on the left side there, and then Paquette's the power play quarterback, and then Bailey doesn't play on the power play. But yeah, anyways, that's the last three lines are just filled with all. The last six are all the 17-year-olds. Yeah, and Delfoni's probably my favorite player on this team. He was a seventh rounder, and he just kept going up, and he really just scraped his way into this team. I only had him on the team. He was like the 25th edition in the year we had like 6 injuries, and I signed him from junior, and then all of a sudden he just kept getting. He wasn't ever a standout in any one category. He was like 8, 9, everything when I drafted him, and then all of a sudden before I knew it, he's double digits, and I was like, man, he's like a year away from being green in everything. His entire defense is 11, so it's going to be all 12s. His entire offense has gone up like crazy, and best of all, his most highly rated category is offensive read, which is the most important. So if you really look at him, it's like, man, he's developed into a really good hockey player. And he's gone up a ton in size. I think he was 5'10", 170 when I drafted him. So he's just like a kind of average skating late round pick that was kind of small and it wasn't crazy good at anything, but he's just been so balanced. He just keeps going up overall, and all of a sudden he's like a 210-pound hard hitting offensive reads high, just balanced overall hockey player. So can play a ton of different roles at a high level. So anyways, I've been super happy with him. He's going to be one of my OAs because I realize Widmer's going to be way too good to be an OA. So then 2 years from now, we're going to have Andelphony as an OA, and then we're going to have one of the goalies as an OA, most likely the 6'6" guy, and then we're going to have Daly be the other OA because Daly is just a freak. He's another guy that's outplayed almost everyone on the team. He's a plus 15 in 25 games, and he is just incredible because I've taught him all 3 spots as a rookie. I taught him left wing, and then I taught him right wing as a 17-year-old. Now as an 18-year-old, he's kind of worked on both sides, all 3 positions actually. He's had a ton of right wing. He's gone from like a 15 to an 18 experience at right wing, and then we had an injury at center, moving back there, and now he's like back on the left wing. So it's just crazy how he can play all 3 spots in pretty much a full level now. And he's got crazy face-offs. He's actually probably the best, one of the top 3 probably face-off guys in the entire league. So I should probably get him back to center, but he plays the wing so well too, and his skating is so awesome. I remember when I drafted him, he was 5'9", 180. So I'm really or 5'9", 170, I think, 175. So he's come a long way too, and developed into a phenomenal hockey player. So I've actually left him on that first line with Dodson injured. I skipped him like 2 or 3 lines, and I just want to keep Widmer and Beaver together because they're the coolest thing about that second line. If you look, Widmer is like the best defensive hockey player on the team as an 18-year-old. He's got 17 positioning. He's a good hitter, and he's a good skater, and he's got 15 acceleration. So 17 positioning, and then on the same line, the right wing, a year older. So these are the first round picks in back-to-back years. Beaver, he's 19-year-old, and Widmer is my first round pick the next year. And so if you look at Beaver, he's got 16 positioning. So we have the 2 wingers on the second line with 17 and 16 positioning, which is insane. So just absolute phenomenal defensive players. And they're both about the same type of player, Widmer and Beaver. Both have 13 skating, both have 15 acceleration. Beaver's a year older, so he's a little bit better, mostly overall, but they're pretty similar. Actually, I don't know if I'd say that. I think Widmer's probably just about the exact same. They're both, I think, 3rd-round picks also. He went to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and my boy Beaver here from Barrie went to the 4th round of the Vancouver Canucks. So yeah, they're just awesome. And I think the best player this season so far for me has been Holloway. He was almost at 2 points a game there for a couple of weeks. He was playing the second line, which I've always never really had a second line center that had insane stats since Frasca. And I've always kind of had that first line center put up a ton of points, but usually there's a big discrepancy in the first and second line centers for me. But this year it's been pretty balanced because Holloway's been doing so well. He's one of my favorite OAs I've ever had, 6'2", 200 with incredible balance. So if you look at those 3 players on the second line, they're almost all the exact same players. They all have 13 speed, all 15 acceleration. They all have about the same 12 to 14 and all the offensive stuff. The other 2 guys just have a little bit higher positioning, so they're a tad higher. That's why probably they're NHL players because they're just a little bit better than Holloway. Because the Widmer's 2 years younger, and then Beaver's 1 year younger. But Holloway's just got the whole package as an OA, and he's just been a wicked hockey player for me the last couple of years. This crazy thing is about him is that 17-year-old year he had 23 points, and that was almost all in the 4th line. I think he filled in a few games on the higher lines, but that entire season I was just rotating as a 4th line center with another guy the same age. And they were just putting up insane stats. 4th line centers getting almost a point a game. So I was like, it was crazy. And then the next year, he came back and was, I think, 3rd or 4th line center again. Had 60 games and 43 points, which is pretty good production from a young guy. Then he came back as a 19-year-old last year and had plus 35 with 75 points in 68 games. So over a point a game, big-time setup man, but 20 goals, huge production. And then this year, he's over a point a game again. He's already at a plus 19, so he's on pace to be like a plus 40. Plus, he's one of the best players in the league. I think he's actually up there in the point totals here. I think he's 3rd or 4th in the league leaders in points. Here he is, yeah. So he's right 36 points, just a couple behind. Unger's kind of got a grip hold. This Unger guy's developed into a freak. That was that guy that was insane a couple years ago in the draft. And so he's probably like the best player in the league. And then Stanford's had a really cool profile because I don't think he was first round pick. He was 2nd round pick. And he's just developed into a crazy offensive player. He's actually almost exact same as Dodson. If you look at this profile stats, though, it's like crazy. He's got 34 points, 22 games, 21 goals already. But yeah, if you look at his offense profile, how it's like 12 to 14, 15 squeezed in there with like that skating. If you look at that skating, 13, 15. If you look at him compared to Dodson, Dodson's about the same player. He's kind of like a much more advanced offense player than defense. But then Dodson's defensive read went up, so he's a pretty good defense player now. But definitely an offensive. He's a little bit better than that Stanford guy. But yeah, Dodson's just a crazy production too this year for me. He's got 31 points, 25 games. Injured right now for just a couple of days. But yeah, he's been awesome. And then Yeah, so if you look at the standings, Oshawa was like trying to figure out why they're so good. Because you look at their lines, they have 17 and 15, and then all 10s on defense pretty much, and then that's it. And they have like an 8 in the first line, nothing in the third line above like 5 on the wings and stuff, and 8. So I was like, why are they just so good? Why are they 20 and 2? And then I looked closer and I realized their goalie. Their goalie went into the import. He was only the 24th pick, but he's just insane. He's got 16 positioning, he's got 14 reflexes, and then he's got 12, 13, and most of the other stuff. And he has had crazy stats for them this season. He's 10-1 with a 922 save percentage, which in the game, that's insanely high. In the game, the save percentages seem a little bit lower than real life. In real life, almost all the top goalies every year, there's a couple of guys in the OHL with like a 920, 915, but in the game, pretty much every year, like the best goalie barely cracks 9. Like, crack 9 in the game, it's like you win goaltender of the year. Almost every goalie, even the first round pick guys and stuff, that are like first round NHL picks as 18, 19-year-olds in the OHL, they usually only have like an 875, 885 save percentage. So I've only ever had one or two guys in like 25 season simulation have over a 9 hour save percentage. And so the highest I ever had was like 910, I think. So yeah, the fact that he's at 922 is crazy. So he's just a freak to add to that team where they have this one of the best players in the league here, this center. Just a powerhouse center at 6'3", 233. And he's got another year too. He's only 18. So he's a dynamo. He's got 17 strength, 16 face-off, just a pure enforcer there. And then they have that big-ass right winger who's 6'4", 224. He's an American guy with crazy goal-scoring ability. 17 getting open, good puck handler, good screener. Solid defense player, solid skater, high strength. So I guess it's like that first line is just kind of bullying people around. Then they have the best player in the draft somehow fell all the way to 10th. He was by far the best player in the draft. It was crazy. I couldn't pick him, unfortunately. I picked later in that, but I thought he was for sure going to be the first pick of the draft. He had 18 positioning and just crazy ratings. One of the best 16-year-olds I've ever seen. Probably like a top 3 center I've ever actually seen in 10 years in this dynasty, or over 10 years now, I guess 11. And so the fact he fell to 10th to Oshawa is crazy. And I guess my scout was right on him because he has 23 points in 18 games and he's an elite defensive player. He's probably actually one of those rare guys that'll probably just be a 2-year OHL player. Probably make the NHL right away at 18 because he's such a good defensive player that he could probably be like a 4th line, 3rd line NHL center at 18 years old with that NHL positioning, solid offense. Just needs the skating to get a bit better, but he's also only 16 and has 11 speed. That's not bad. So yeah, he's a guy that I was thinking about since they're so good and 20 and 2 and they don't have a ton of depth on the wings on defense. I was thinking about making potentially a blockbuster since I'm all in for that 17-year-old class to potentially make a huge blockbuster and trade Beaver, who's insane, like a 15 rated, and then trade Widmer, who's not going to be here for that big year when all the 17-year-olds are 19 in 2 years. And then potentially even trading my best defenseman. Well, this guy's no ace, so there's not a lot of trade value, but my best 19-year-old defenseman, Ryan Shepard, who's a freak. One of my favorite players I've ever drafted. He's a 4th rounder that's developed into a stud. So I was thinking I could give him like 3 elite players, like 19-year-olds like that, and guys that aren't going to be here in the year I go for the Memorial Cup in 2 years, and get back that 16-year-old defenseman. But I don't really want to do it because I think that that center, but I think that center's too good is the problem. I don't think he's going to be here. I think he's just going to play next year in the OHL when all my studs are 18. He's 17, and I think the year after that he's going to be in the NHL at 18. We'll see, but yeah, if you look at the yeah, he's just so much better. There's a really good player that went 2nd overall too, and Osborne here. He's got crazy offense and speed. But yeah, if you look at like Cheryl was 10th overall. Yeah, I picked 19th. My skid as a 5th best player in the draft. This guy's developed crazy player too. He's got crazy defense. He's only got 8 skating and strength and stuff, but he's got almost a point a game. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He has 14 positioning, 14 defensive reads. So that's a really cool winger. That's going to be like a shutdown guy. But yeah, his skating's not crazy. But yeah, Cheryl's definitely the best player in the draft. What's crazy here is I don't even see the guy that went 1-1. How far down is he? That's crazy. What? Am I blind here? Wow, he's not. He got demoted. Yeah, that was crazy. He has some high potential though. He's got 5-star potential, but he's not even ranked in the top. Like his current stats aren't even ranked in the top like 20 players in the draft. So I don't know if that was a great see like guys like that going over that Cheryl guy at 10th overall. Must have been some scouts who were kind of wrong here. I think this was the other best player of the draft. This center's pretty freakish too for Flint. So that's another guy I could maybe look at their record, but I don't really want to bring in that guy that young. If I'm gonna bring in a big time trade to go with that Memorial Cup, I'm gonna try to get another guy from this draft class. So if you look back at this draft class now, and this is sorting by my scouts' opinion on ability, I feel that's where they went overall. So it's saying that Unger guy's best player, who somehow he fell to 4th, which is crazy too. Peterson, my guy, was 15th pick. My scout already said second best player in the draft, and McDonald, who went the pick after that I traded for last year, that was my huge trade, is the 3rd best player in the draft. And then my scout says Gods is the 4th best player in the draft, who's also my player that I got in the 2nd round. And then there's a couple picks in between, and then he says Fournier is one of the better players in the draft. And then you look a few picks down, and it has that's that crazy center with a really good passing that was 6 feet tall with like 15 face-off, or 15 passing, sorry, an offensive read, and he had a good face-off. So that guy has grown to 6'3" he was 169 pounds, so he's gained 3 inches and 30 pounds in like a year. And so he's going to be a wicked second line center, a pure offensive guy. Him and Peterson as those top 2 line centers will be nasty. And then Fournier is going to be my stud 3rd line center. Funny thing is, I think he was a 4th line center as a rookie, and then he's going to be 3rd line center for 3 years, because it's going to be Peterson first line, that guy just showed you second line, and then Fournier is going to be the stud 3rd line center. He's a good skater, solid, scrappy overall player. He's 200 pounds. He's only 5'10", so I think he's the perfect 3rd line center. He's going to be kind of more of a defensive guy, but he's still really good, solid offensively. But I think those are going to be my top 3 line centers for a couple of years. And then if you look down a little bit, it has my 6'6" guy here. That was the other big time trade I made. 6'6", he grew from 168. He's a beast. And then if you look down here a little bit more, there's probably a few more guys. This guy has been crazy, because if you look, he's the only guy in that list past the 3rd round. So that was another steal. Again, this is just my scout's opinion, though. But he's that just shows that he's probably progressed a lot. Because remember, I almost took this Talbot guy over Peterson, the goalie. So I really didn't want to pass on a goalie. And it's funny now, because all of a sudden I almost took that guy in the 1st round, and it's like my 5th rounder is like higher rated. Martin's developed a lot. His puck handling's always been good, and his defense has really caught up, and his skating's gotten a lot better. So it doesn't look great now, but in a couple of years, he's going to be really good. That puck handling's really high, and that defense is really solid. So he's almost like a perfect 4th line center on like a really good team. Sorry, a winger, because his defense will be nasty, and he can hit a little bit, and he can skate. So yeah, that's a sweet 5th round pick, because he'll be definitely a key rotation player probably that year. And then we also have one more guy. Yeah, Forsey's actually fell a little bit. He hasn't progressed as much, because he was like 6th or 7th on this list if you looked at this last year. My scout, after the draft, he was like a 3rd round pick. My scout had him as like the 7th or 8th best player in the draft. So he's got passed by quite a few players. And then Conrad's the other crazy one. He's an 8th rounder if you look here in my scout's opinion. He never had high potential, and I think my scouts already said he's reached his potential, 1.5, 1.5. But the league says he's pretty far away still, but my scout has him as a 1. But if you look at him, he's already really solid. And he probably won't really change it all, because he's one of those guys not a high floor, or my scout doesn't think. But he also already has pretty good stats. He's 6'5", 215 with 13 passing. So he's another guy who can probably play that 4th line wing, rotate with that other guy I just showed you. Because I'm so deep, like these guys could probably be like 2nd liners on a lot of teams when they're 18, 19 years old. But on my team, he's turning 17. His late birthday, and in a couple days there. But yeah, he's another guy that will probably be in the rotation there as like a backup or whatever. Potentially after an injury or two, he might find himself starting in a year or two when that whole team's 19 years old. And then yeah, you go down a little bit more and you see a few more of my guys here. You got Ethel, the defenseman. And then all the way down here, you got Baldoni. So it's actually got Ethel. This guy was a 7th round pick. He's really come along, it looks like. That's some crazy screening. Holy. But yeah, so that's pretty cool about this draft. It definitely has Peterson and McDonald, the clear number 2 and 3 players in this draft. Gods is a guy that my scout thinks very highly of, because his passing, offensive read, and his offensive stuff is so high. And he's really gained a lot of weight and strength. And size, sorry. And so he's another guy that he's going to have a big future on that 2nd line. So it'll probably be Peterson, McDonald on that 1st line with that Daly guy with 15 faceoffs I showed you. That's a year older, but he'll be in OA that year. And then Gods will be that stud 2nd line winger. and with Parrish, the 6'6" guy. So those will be kind of be like the top 6 with that 6'3" passing center. So that's going to be the future offensive lines, and then we're going to have that 5'10" center in the third line and fill in from there. But the big trade we could make is just for this year. If you look here, the one last thing I want to show before the end of the episode is how weird it is. Sault Ste. Marie's 9-14 last place, but if you look, they have the craziest line in the league. They got a 19, 17, 16 on the first line, and they got a 15 second line center. But if you look, their defense is atrocious. They got 3s in the second and third line and a right D and stuff. So they're one injury away on D from like not having a guy over like 8. They had the first pick last year and took this goalie who is okay, but he's not great. But yeah, it's just crazy if you look. They have full 5-star. So this guy was the 8th pick of the draft. He's 19 now. Just an absolute freak show. So he'd be a guy I could potentially trade for this year. It'd be a realistic trade if they're in last place. Give up a few future draft picks, but he's almost too good where you'd have to give up so much for him. And then they have a guy a year younger who's 18, who the right winger there, and he was the first pick of the draft. And he's just pretty good. He wasn't quite like a normal first pick of the draft, like superstar type, but he's definitely really good. NHL player. Those guys are both first round AHL picks. The left winger was pretty high, and then the right winger went like 25th or whatever. And then they're on the center. They got the guy. I guess the same year they had the first pick for that right winger. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, he went 5th or 2nd in the import. So yeah, it must have been the year. Oh yeah, because the imports are not drafted; they're older. So yeah, the same year they had the first pick and got that right winger. They would have taken the center in the import, 2nd or 3rd overall, and got those 2 stars. And this guy is crazy. 6'1", 220 with 15 speed, 16 balance, 16 positioning, 16 passing. So he's just a incredible all-around center. One of the best players in the league. He's like pretty much one of those guys you want to build your team around. Be a first-line center that gets 100 points. So if I could potentially get him in a trade for this year, I have a lot of assets, so I could. I don't really need to draft anyone this year because my team's still really young with all 17-year-olds. So I could potentially give up like a ton of draft picks and not really give up any of my good young players and get that guy. Like I give up like 4 or 5 seconds for that guy or something, because I have my normal 3 and then I picked up I think an extra 1 or something. So I could potentially do like a huge trade where I give up like one of these guys. Like I'm not going to use in the future. Maybe I don't know. I could potentially give up Maynard and give up my stud first round pick who's going to be a star if I don't really need him because I have a bunch of wingers already. Because Andolfoni will be the overager with Daly that year, and then we'll have Gods, Forsey. Wisniewski's a key guy too. He'll be like a 3rd or 4th line winger. He's got 6 speed. So I have a lot of assets. So I could probably move one of them. Like one of those good young 17-year-olds maybe, and like 4 second-round picks, and get maybe that 19-year-old from a last place team, and really go all in this year also because my team's nasty this year. If I could get a 16 rated center and move Hollowick, God, that'd be crazy because that would mean that guy would probably be like a 2nd line center, move Hollowick to 3rd line or something, and I'd just have 3 amazing centers. But I don't know if it's really worth it. I already have a 12 for 4th line center, so I guess it's probably not worth it. It'd probably be better to get like a elite left D there to bump that guy down to the 3rd line, and then get like my top 4 all above like 12 overall. Get like a 15 rated left D would probably be the best move looking at this now. We got to remember Dodson's like a 16 rated here normally too. So we got like 15, a 15, and a 19, and then 17, a 12, and a 15. So those top 6 are nasty. The Daly would normally be the 3rd line center and 11. So yeah, I guess the move would probably be to get an elite lefty or like an elite left winger for this year. That's 19 just to play for me for a couple months. And I do have quite a bit of assets, but it'd be a big thing. But it's like it also could help me win a championship because Oshawa is gonna be tough to beat. But at the same time, they're like good, but that goalie makes them really elite. But they're not a true like 20-2 team. Like they're not an absolute powerhouse. Like I have way better 3rd and 4th lines than them, and my D's just as good. So, and my top 6 are probably better just because I have more depth on the wings. So it's like they're not really that insane. I should be able to beat them in the playoffs. I've always had trouble with Oshawa, but so that's not like a powerhouse team. Like they're probably kind of equal to me talent wise. Yeah, same thing. Like I'm probably better in this North Bay team. They're 17-5, but and again, it's just my scout's point of view. So maybe their scout has their guys better, but they have like a 4 and an 8 on the top 2 D pairings, and they got like a 7 7 on the right wings and a 5 center and like a 10 second line center. So they're good, but they have a really good fourth line. I like that. 2 grinders that are double digits. That's pretty cool. They had that pretty high pick last year. Is that Horde? Oh yeah, this guy that was like 5'11", 170. So he's really come a long way, grown quite a bit. Yeah, he was. I remember that guy. He's just like a pure passer. Didn't have much defense, but his defense actually got pretty decent. So he's really developed. He'll be really good in a couple years. When he's 19, I think he'll be probably one of the leading point getters in the league because his passing and faceoffs and puck handling are so high. He'll be one of the best playmaking centers. Really good stamina too. So he's probably a guy that in 2 years when he's 19 will log like 20 minutes a game, get like 100 points, but we'll see how he develops. He's also got crazy potential, 1 out of 5 stars from the league, and my scout has him at 3.5, which is still pretty good. Anyways, that's the episode. So I think the move is going to be to trade for lefty. So I'll probably sort for all the lefties and all the teams in last place, see if I can find. Yeah, see if I can find one, maybe get a winger or something. But yeah, my team's pretty set for this year. Other than that, I'm really excited. I think my team's even better than my record shows. I think we've just had some really bad goalie play. This is probably the worst goalie season I've ever had. He's a pretty good player too. He was the stud 4th overall pick of the draft I traded for. I made a blockbuster trade, gave away a bunch of good 19-year-olds a couple years ago to get him as a 16-year-old. Probably the highest drafted guy I've ever traded for, and he's just kind of shit the bed this season. But at the same time, he's a young goalie. Young goalies always are really inconsistent. He could all of a sudden turn it on and finish the season with like an 870 and be fine and still break out next year. He has really high potential and he keeps going up, so he could still be really good by the end of next year when I'm a really good team. But it looks like for now, Satko's kind of taking the mantle as number 1 goalie. He's just as good, but he also performs a lot better. He had an 891 save percentage last year and 80 this year, just way better. He's only 7-5, but yeah, he's just a guy. He's got that 6'6" frame, and he's that typical Euro goalie, highly thought of. So I'm probably going to roll with him as number 1 and kind of give up a little bit of faith in Reese. I also have that other guy I really like, that Kastnets. He was my big import pick this year, and I actually think he's got an actual legit shot at jumping those 2 guys because he's 17, the same age as all the studs. That 6'6" guy's a year older. So he'd probably be back as an overager anyways, but if this guy develops like I think he might, I might not need to bring back that 6'6" guy as an overager and use my overager on a defensive guy or something. Because then it's like if I can get away with this guy being on that super team when he's 19 and this guy's really good, I could use that extra OA spot on like a 14 rated lefty or right D or something. Really solidify that defense. That's the one kind of weak spot I don't have is like that elite D. I want to show you one player before this episode ends. London has the craziest D. They haven't been able to sign him yet, and he got like injured for the entire season almost. But this guy was like the 7th pick of the import draft, but he should have been the 1st pick of the import draft. My scout has him as a freak show. I think he's even better than that. I think the scouting's gone down to B because he's in another league I'm not scouting right now. But I think, yeah, he's just insane. He's got the craziest stats. So he's a 17-year-old lefty. So if I could maybe find a way to get him on my team next year, I'd like to trade a shitload of assets to London for his rights and then potentially sign him and then have him as my star lefty and Lundy as my right D in that first pairing. That would be pretty nasty. Because 18 positioning at 6'1", 223 is so crazy. That's like a pure NHL defenseman. He'll probably be... Oh, he's got a late birthday, so not even in this draft. So yeah, he'll probably be a 1st-round pick next year. But yeah, he's insane. I really would like to get him on my team.